All right, everyone. I'm going live about 30 seconds early because, frankly, I just got sick of sitting here waiting to go live. We have got a fun-filled happy hour live stream in front of us today, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm pretty excited about it because once again, we have a stream from my home state of New Hampshire, where we are trying to pass a bill to effectively ban critical race theory in state governments and state agencies and state contractors. And so, of course, the University of New Hampshire, or at least one overzealous faculty member in the Department of Education in the University of New Hampshire, decided to do a webinar talking about what critical race theory really is and educating the peons that just don't they just don't understand. They just don't understand this swill that he's trying to sell to the masses. So we're gonna watch a webinar today to educate ourselves about critical race theory. Now, because it is Friday, you know what that means. This is a happy hour live stream at 3 p.m. Maybe a little early for happy hour for some, but oh hell, it's Friday. It's Friday. You know you're working from home anyway. Come on. I have, as always, my giant wine glass, and it's filled to the brim. Just if you want a scale, it is, yes, half the size of my head. That has about half a bottle of champagne in it, mixed with orange juice for, of course, my favorite drink, mimosa. And just in case, because it's a long webinar, folks, just in case, I do have the entire other half of the bottle right here, just in case I need it. So if you are drinking something, whether it be coffee, tea, water, something stronger, let me know in the chat what you're drinking, and I will do a cheers to you. Thank you for joining me on this glorious Friday. Oh, Honey Badger just says it's tax season. I'm working. I got to do my taxes, man. Let's not talk about taxes on Happy Hour live stream. We're gonna do a cheers. We're going to be merry and jolly today. All right. Now, before we get into it, I have a few quick announcements to make. Let me share my screen. Guys, I have an exciting project that hopefully, if all goes well, I'm going to be launching next week. I think you guys are really, really, really going to love this project. It's going to be subversive. It's going to involve guerrilla action. It's going to involve like a little bit of troublemaking, hooliganism, if you will. If you want to be alerted about this project, the best thing to do is to get on my mailing list. The way you do that is by going to drkarlin.com, DRKARLYN. Just scroll down on the homepage to this little email box, sign up to be on the email list. I do not spam. I do not sell emails. I've actually never even sent a single email out to my email list, but I will be when I launch this project. I'm only going to bother you for stuff I think you're going to be interested in and that you need to know. So make sure you are on the email list if you want to be notified about that. If you don't want to be on my email list, or if you just really, really like me for some reason, what you're going to want to do is join my locals community as well. I have a lot of my locals members here in the chat today. They can tell you how awesome my locals community is. Locals is a place where I interact more than most other social networks with the community that's there. We do Zoom calls twice a week with the community that last, frankly, a really long time. They usually at least last 2 to 3 hours. So I hang out with you guys. We talk about what's going on. We do book clubs together. We do all sorts of stuff together. So if you really want to keep in touch, join my locals, kb.locals.com. It's a wonderful community. They keep me sane. I love my locals so much. And of course, as Salty Nicholas Pride says, like and share. Hit that like button, folks. Let YouTube know that we're doing important work here today. All right, let me stop that share and let's get down to the business at hand. Now, before we watch the webinar, I just want to introduce you to our protagonist for the day. And we've met him before. He is not even new. We have met him before. Oh, wait. Dragon Water says the Zen card is fun. Yes, every day during the week in my locals community, I post a Zen card and I talk about it to try to give us a little moment of Zen. So we do that in locals as well. But so we have met our protagonist in today's webinar before. We met him in the committee hearing for HB 544. And so I want to remind you, exactly who this guy is before we watch the webinar. He's this one right here, Jacob Bennett. He looks exactly like you expect him to look for being a woke SJW. And I would like you to listen to Jacob talk about how capitalism is the result of slavery. Just real quick.
The establishment of capitalism in this country would not have happened without the hundreds of years of slavery that allowed it to happen. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you. Thank you.
Not the other way around.
Okay, I just want to make sure. First of all, did the sound work? Did everyone catch that? Did everyone catch how our friend Jacob says that capitalism was only possible because of slavery? Not the other way around. Capitalism didn't create slavery. Slavery created capitalism. Did that work for everyone? You hear the sound? Am I doing things okay? Let me know in the chat. Yes, 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 yes. Excellent. Excellent. So now what we're going to do is we're going to watch ourselves a webinar. And I'm going to do a little commentary on the webinar as we're watching it, as I am prone to do. Make sure that my audio is sharing. Okay. Now, this webinar, I want to point something out before we started. This webinar, I have linked it in the description below, but I want you to notice it's on this channel, Actively Unwoke. Could that be a hint of the super secret project that I'm going to be launching very, very soon? It might be. It might be. So this is going to be a channel, guys, where I just started it to basically, I'm going to be doing a couple different things on the channel, Actively Unwoke. I'm going to be trying to make short little videos explaining different woke BS, just breaking it down like really, really quickly, things that you can share with your friends, family members, things like that. But the other thing I'm going to do is I'm using it as a place to house these stupid, absurd trainings. And yes, I have backups. I don't want to hear about it, okay? But like, this is going to be one of the main places where I'm going to put all of these trainings I can find, and just, I'm going to leave them there just without commentary so people can watch them and they can think whatever it is they want to think, but at least we're exposing what's going on. So if you are interested in subscribing to this channel, the link is in the description below because I've linked to this video. So I would definitely appreciate that subscription. Again, there's not too much on it right now because I just barely launched it because I needed some place to put these trainings. But there will be more coming very, very soon. All right. Who is ready to get started with the training for today? If you're ready to get started, please type yes into the chat. Hit that thumbs up button and take a drink of your beverage. Cheers. Oh my God. There's nothing better than sparkling wine. Nothing. Nothing. I don't care what people say. All right. Let's get started with this training, folks. Let's do it.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Sharkey, Chair of the Education Department. And this year we started this series, What Do We Mean by X? And the reason why we started this series is that in the past year, there's a number of terms that many of us are using, and we're not sure that we understand how we're using them and which traditions we're drawing on in these conversations. So we thought it might be a good idea to have these monthly sessions. They're just meant to be collaborative conversations about these topics and these concepts. Our first installment was last month, and it was What Do We Mean by Inclusion? And it was led by Dr. Vincent Connolly, Associate Professor in Education, who specializes in special education and special education law and policy. And today we have the privilege of being led by, or having this discussion facilitated by, Dr. Jacob Bennett, one of our recent graduates of our PhD program, and now an adjunct in our Ed Leadership strand of the PhD program.
So did you guys catch that? He is an adjunct in the Education Leadership strand of the University of New Hampshire Department of Education.
So I am going to stop talking and let Jacob lead us in this conversation. I want to thank Jacob for making time to do this for us. And Jacob, take it away.
All right. Thank you, Judy. I want to start by thanking you for offering the opportunity to me to facilitate this talk. I'm looking forward to it. I'm a little nervous.
Oh, you should be nervous, Jacob. I think that is a very good inclination on your behalf.
I think I should say at the outset that this is something that I have studied, that I have tried to be mindful of in my teaching and in my research, but I would not say that I am the great expert on critical race theory. I think that it's important to note that I have a lot of experience with it, but there are a lot of texts that others will have read or approaches that others will have used that fall under the category of critical race theory. So I just wanted to say that at the outset. And I also wanted to say,
I'm pretty sure Jacob just admitted that he's not actually an expert in the thing that he's about to give a webinar on, which I think is actually going to become really crystal clear as we make our way into the webinar, but I could be wrong.
That I want to, as someone who used to teach rhetoric and composition and persuasion, I always got really
he just admitted to being a propagandist.
Anxious when students would say we, whatever. And I wanted to note that, the title of the series is What Do We Mean By? And I wanted to maybe think about what we mean by we in that sense. There are a lot of the folks who are joined with us today are connected to the education department, whether student, faculty, staff. But the impetus for this particular installation in the series was my engagement with a bill in the State House.
So did he just admit that the only reason that he's concerned about this topic is because he was opposing HB 544? Is that what he just said? I think it is. And what does it say about, I'm sorry, like the University of New Hampshire is a publicly funded institution. So are they basically using their propaganda to belittle their propaganda, rather, their platform? Oh my God, let me start over. I'm not even drunk yet. Are they basically using their platform to assert propaganda to try to oppose a bill? I'm sorry, does University of New Hampshire like its state funding? You know what? I mean, it's going to be actually really funny if this passes because, and I think it will pass, by the way. I really do. I'm feeling very good about it. It's going to have repercussions for people like Jacob who are suddenly going to find themselves out of a job. Too bad, so sad.
Hampshire, HB 544, which I'll talk a little bit about later.
And there is actually, I have not watched this webinar, but I did kind of skip through it. There is actually a whole section where he talks about the bill, and I cannot wait till we get to that section because I know he has no effing clue what he's talking about. I'm going to rip him apart in that section like you have never seen anyone rip anyone else apart before in your life. So you better stay tuned, buckle down, get your drinks, let's go.
And so I think that it takes
guys, I can't. Okay, so people are saying in the chat to magnify the image. This is the image, dude. This is how it was presented. I can't change it. It's a YouTube video. I wish I could. He's gonna become bigger later. You're gonna be fine. We're gonna make it. Okay.
Approach to critical race theory that I think is different than my approach in my thinking about it. And so I wanted to note that this is something that I also think is for a larger we, since this is in the State House. It's also in the state legislatures in about a half dozen states total, I think, maybe more. So it's an expanded we when we're talking about critical race theory right now. It was also part of a federal executive order passed by President Trump, or written by and signed by President Trump. It was later halted by court injunction and then reversed by the current president, Biden. But it is...
Okay, Jacob's going to harp on the fact that Trump's executive order was halted by a court injunction. We now know how to get around that. And actually, the language in the bill has been specifically written to take care of those concerns. So I just tried to make it a little bit bigger, guys. There is an issue in terms of like being able to share the audio through StreamYard. This is the best we got. I'm sorry. We're all going to survive, okay?
A thing that has been in sort of a broader conversation than just academic circles, I think. So with that grounding, I want to say that I think it's important to note that ideas do live beyond their original utterance and theorization.
Ideas do live beyond their initial utterance and theorization. So what he basically just said is, it doesn't matter how critical race theory started What matters is what I tell you it means today, because ideas live beyond their initial utterance or occurrence. It doesn't matter how it started. What matters is now.
And that rather than lamenting that fact and that reality, I hope we can revel in the fluidity and flexibility of language and experience, and that we can take divergences.
Jacob, we all know that you do revel in the fluidity and flexibility of language
As opportunities for regrounding, relearning, and recommitting to shared ideals. And with that in mind, I put together, just as an opening or an image here, a word cloud that is not exhaustive, but incorporates some of the terms.
How much do you want to bet he did not put that together at all and he found it on the internet? He did not put this together. I don't believe that for one red second. He found it on the internet.
That I have read, both positive and negative.
I will give a prize if someone can find this image on the internet before the end of this webinar.
Both pro and con, again, in this broader dialogue around critical race theory. And I noted that there are several state legislatures that are proposing the banning of critical race theory as a training or teaching theory or framework.
So just to be really clear, folks, and you're going to see this later in the webinar when he actually talks about the bill. The bill does not ban critical race theory. I know I say that colloquially as like a way to shorten it. It does not ban critical race theory. It bans the teaching of certain divisive concepts as if they are fact. So you could actually, under HB 544, you could still teach critical race theory. You just can't teach it as though this is verifiable fact. You have to teach it like in terms of like, some people think this, some people think that. So the bill does not ban critical race theory. It does not ban diversity training. It does not ban. I heard today, someone told me today that they think that this bill bans teaching about the Holocaust. No, it doesn't. It doesn't ban teaching about racism. It doesn't ban teaching about slavery. It doesn't ban any of these things. Jacob is already lying. He's already off to a good start with the fluidity of language.
And I should also note that it's also broader than just critical race theory, and maybe even more specific, actually. In some cases, the 1619 Project has been explicit.
1619 Project is critical race theory, Jacob.
Or specifically identified as being out of bounds for curriculum in some cases. So this is just a word cloud representing some of the words or phrases I've come across in my readings in the literature and discussions about CRT. The next 3 slides are text heavy, and I apologize. I know it's like cardinal rule number 1 of PowerPoint is don't use a lot of text.
He's already using something from 1995, but I'm fairly certain that this has been around since like the 70s. Guys, what did that... Hang on. I'm just Googling something real quick. Okay, Introduction to Critical Race Theory. I guess this is from 1995. Never mind, I'm wrong.
But they represent the jumping off point for me, anyways, when I think about what critical race theory does or where it comes from. This first quotation is from Derek Bell. And I wanted to note that, it's as a means of establishing a shared sense of the foundations of CRT. I thought it would be useful to share some very brief distillations. This is from Derek Bell's 1995 article, Who's Afraid of Critical Race Theory? And he talks a bit about the origins of CRT as coming out of a legal studies background.
Yeah, Adrian's saying, I know the idea, you're right, the idea got started in the 70s. Yeah, I know that, but like James Lindsay quotes a book that's like I think the name is like The Introduction to Critical Race Theory, and I was trying to find out what year that book was written because I'm pretty sure it was sooner than 1995, but I could be wrong.
Derek Bell was a law professor. He also, I should note, was a writer of fiction, and Space Traders is a story that he wrote that was later turned into a film. And it's a good example of this sort of counter storytelling that is crucial to CRT's tradition.
Did he just say counter storytelling is crucial to CRT's tradition?
The next slide, this is from...
He didn't even read the slide. He didn't even read the slide. Okay, now we have to go back and read the damn slide. Okay, what did the slide say? Professor Charles Lawrence speaks for many critical race theory adherents when he disagrees with the notion that laws are or can be written from a neutral perspective. Lawrence asserts that such neutral perspective does not and cannot exist, that we all speak from a particular point of view and from what he calls a positioned perspective. The problem is not all positioned perspectives are equally valued, equally heard, or equally included. From the perspective of critical race theory, some positions have been historically oppressed, distorted, ignored, silenced, destroyed, appropriated, commodified, and marginalized, and all of this not accidentally. Conversely, the law simultaneously and systematically privileges subjects who are white. So, I'm sorry, how does this differ? How does this differ from what I've been saying critical race theory is and what Lindsay and Helen Pluckrose and anyone else talking about this who has been saying critical race theory? Critical race theory assumes that racism exists everywhere in all institutions, in all people, and the job of the critical theorist is to uncover how the racism occurred. The question is not if racism occurred, the occurrence of racism is assumed. How is this different than that? That's what it says. All right, let's just read this slide before he goes on a tangent that has nothing to do with what he actually has on the screen, okay? So see, this one says, CRT inherits from CLS a commitment to being critical, which in this sense means also to be radical, to locate problems not at the surface of doctrine, but in the deep structure of American law and culture. For race crits, racism is not only a matter of individual privilege and everyday practice, rather, race itself is deeply embedded in language, perceptions, perhaps even reason itself. They just said that reason is racist. That's what this says. I tweeted out earlier today that people have got to stop fighting critical race theory with logic because they don't care. They don't care. They will never respond to logic. They don't care. This says that. It literally says right here, for race crits, racism is not only a matter of individual prejudice and everyday practice, rather, race is deeply embedded in language, perceptions, and even reason itself. It just said that reason and logic are racist. In CRT's postmodern narrative, racism is an inescapable feature of Western culture, and race is already inscribed in the most innocent and neutral seeming concepts. Even ideas like truth, justice themselves are open to interrogations that reveal their complicity with power. They also just said that truth and justice are racist. Now, you notice that Jacob here isn't actually reading the slides he put on the screen, because if he did read the slides he put on the screen, it sounds like an incredibly racist ideology.
Next slide, this is from Angela Harris. And I should note that at the end of the presentation, there are 2 slides with suggested readings, which again is not exhaustive. It's just some of the texts that I think of when I think of what are the foundations. This slide and the following slide refer to Angela Harris's 1994 introductory remarks to a text on jurisprudence during the Reconstruction, and suggest the origins of critical race theory as coming out of critical legal studies. Again, there is this sort of law-heavy foundation, and a lot of the early writing identified as critical race theory. And this particular quotation gives us a sense that not only is there a legal background, but there is a sense that there is a structural perspective, that racism is not merely individual, but it is also structural and embedded in a lot of systems and structures like language and law, so that we can trouble ideas like truth and justice and other very broad abstractions that are typically seen as very positive and worthy of praise. The second, this is a following paragraph in the same text from from Harris.
All right, we got to stop and read it again because he's not actually going to read what he's putting on the screen or even comment on the content of what he's putting on the screen. At the same time, CRT inherits from traditional civil rights scholarship a commitment to a vision of liberation from racism through right reason. You just said on the previous slide that reason is racist. You just said it on the previous slide. Stop contradicting yourself. Despite the difficulty of separating legal reasoning and institutions from their racial roots, CRT's ultimate vision is redemptive, not destructive. Well, that's like saying the election was fortified, not stolen. Justice remains possible. It is the property of whites and non-whites alike. In a modernist narrative, CRT seems confident, like that crafting the correct theory of race and racism can help lead enlightenment, empowerment, and finally to emancipation. That indeed, the truth shall set you free. Dude, you just said on the previous slide that truth is racist. These people have an identity crisis. They're like Jekyll and Hyde. They need to make up their minds.
She's noting here that in addition to a legal foundation, there is also a foundation in civil rights activism, so that there is a commitment in CRT to a vision of liberation from racism.
How much you want to bet he just like went through this book and was like, ooh, CRT and civil rights, and he took a screenshot without really reading it or thinking about the fact that this screenshot is directly contradictory to the screenshot that he just showed?
Again, noting that there's a difficulty in separating legal reasoning from racist roots. You know, we think about the beginnings of sort of police forces. We think about the beginnings of capitalism as being founded on slavery. It's hard to separate. Wait.
We're going to rewind that. We already knew he thought that capitalism was founded on slavery. But I'm just going to go back just a second here, just a few seconds.
The beginnings of sort of police forces. We think about the beginnings of capitalism as being founded on slavery.
He just said that police forces are founded on slavery. He said the beginnings of police forces and capitalism are founded on slavery. Let's listen to it one more time. I'm going to just go back a little bit further this time.
From racist roots, you know, we think about the beginnings of sort of police forces. We think about the beginnings of capitalism as being.
We could think about the beginnings of police forces and okay.
Founded on slavery. It's hard to separate these things from their historical roots. And
no, wrong. Those are not the historical roots of either police forces or capitalism.
And that's something that
Notice that he's not giving any evidence. He's not getting any evidence to back up his position that police forces are founded on slavery and capitalism is founded on slavery. There's no evidence. It's just Jacob's opinion.
Being grappled with and is still being grappled with in civil rights struggles and scholarship.
I'm sure it is still being grappled with, Jacob. I'm sure you guys are still trying to figure out how to really back up the notion that police forces and capitalism are grounded in slavery.
I'm going to show just a brief snippet. This is a talk that Kimberly Crenshaw gave. Gosh, I should know the year, but I don't know the year. It's relatively recent. And I wanted to include this because Kimberly Crenshaw, you know, Derek Bell is often cited as a founding father of critical race theory. Kimberly Crenshaw is cited as the originator of the term intersectionality. I think that they both have in various places demurred based on those appellations, but I think that they deserve the credit that's due. Here in this video, this short snippet, Crenshaw links CRT to campus-based civil rights struggles, but also hints at.
Everyone should tweet at the University of New Hampshire right now and ask them why they are employing someone who says that the police were created by slavery. I think everyone should do that right now. Prepare for failing audio? Well, we're going to see. I don't know. I haven't watched this. We're going to see.
At the intersection of race and gender discrimination. as well as the failures of so-called colorblind or neutral law and policy.
I'm not like in favor of canceling people, but I'm sorry. Like, people like this need to be canceled. I'm sorry. Like, I'm going to say it. Like, people like this should not have jobs teaching people, and they should not have jobs teaching children. And this is not about like, I don't like his opinion. This is about goddamn competence in what he's doing. This person is a PhD. If anyone knows how to back up their assertion with evidence, or they should know how to do this, it's people who have a goddamn PhD. You have to back up everything you say in PhD programs, or at least I did in mine. I don't know what's going on at UNH, but people who honestly believe that the police and that capitalism were only came about because of slavery, I'm sorry, go screw. You lost your privileges when it comes to teaching.
You'll recall that the first word-heavy slide that I showed discusses the notion that that law has never been neutral and perhaps cannot be neutral.
Law has never been neutral and cannot be neutral. Okay.
So we'll just play this snippet.
Oh, whoever said prepare for failing audio, you were absolutely correct. Dragonwater must have watched this before I did. Hopefully they realize that no one can hear what is actually going on right now.
I can't hear it.
Oh, here comes Judy.
Yeah, Jacob, can you the sound?
The sound's not coming through?
Yeah.
Ah, my mistake.
Oh, Jacob doesn't know how technology works.
Let me try something here.
All that PhD, so little common sense. Oh, we just go right to why HB 544 is racist.
Oh, yeah, good suggestion about turning on the closed caption.
Ah!
Pausing the share for a moment. Sorry about this, everybody.
Dragonwater's already way ahead of us. Dragonwater's like, I stopped at this point. Okay, well, we're gonna get through this. They're gonna work it out. Whoa, whoa.
Around.
Oh, they figured it out. Okay.
Let me just go back a few seconds. Thank you for bearing with me.
Product of student activism from the past. So in particular, I want to talk about and frame these comments as comments around critical race theory. So I don't. So in particular, I want to talk about and frame these comments as comments around critical race theory. So I don't really have the time to tell the full story.
They always do this every single time. Every single time they talk about critical race theory, one of the first things they say is, you know, it's really more complex than we're going to be able to get into, and I really don't have the time and I don't want to do the emotional labor to explain all of it to you. But let me just tell you this little clip and not really say anything of content
of critical race theory and perform it. But I'm going to ask you to take into consideration that most of what I'm talking about actually came out of the earlier generations' interrogation of, contestation of the.
I'm going to tell you about the history of this thing that I don't really want to talk about, and I don't have time to explain this thing, but you need to take my word for it that here's the history of this thing.
Terms of knowledge production in universities. And the idea was that knowledge production, access to knowledge production, the ability to create a group of intellectuals who are actually engaging in the process of
still has not said anything actually relating to the topic.
Rationalizing our ongoing efforts to reform society of
ongoing efforts to reform society. Ding, 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 ding. Ding, ding, ding. A moment of honesty about what their true motives are. Just as a reminder, folks, like critical race theory, if you're new here, first off, welcome. Second off, cheers and thank you for joining us for happy hour. Thirdly, critical race theory is not about fairness. It's not about justice. It's not about equity. It's not about creating more equality. It's not about creating more opportunities for everyone. Critical race theory is about destabilizing the systems that we have in place so that those systems can be torn down and being rebuilt in the image that these people have in mind. That is all that critical race theory is about. It is about power, and it is about destabilizing all of the institutions that we have in our society. That's it.
Contesting the ways in which racial stratification was justified. That project was ever so much a part of the civil rights movement as voting rights was, or as economic justice is. So recognizing that these places are as contested as courtrooms, as elections, as hiring on.
Oh, the critical race theorists think that elections are contested. How interesting. How interesting.
Offices, that was a central part of critical race theory. And it's a central part that I want to hold up, partly because students had everything to do with making that project actually happen.
Students had everything to do with making that project actually happen. In the Cultural Revolution in China, they weaponized the youth of the country against their political opponents. Critical race theory is doing exactly the same thing. Every time you hear them say, the students asked for this. We're doing what the students want. The students are guiding this discussion. What they're doing is weaponizing the youth of this country who are not old enough and wise enough to know better, and they're doing it to go after their political opponents. Crazy Princess says these teachings are going to brainwash people into repeating segregation days and completely forget the words of MLK, I pray for our country. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
The second thing that I want to also talk about is the role of gender in the domestication of racial justice discourses. And I want to frame that out of the contemporary effort to create a racial justice project that I call post-racially pragmatic. It is President Obama's attempts.
What the hell is this woman even saying? This is word salad. None of this makes any sense.
To deliver at last some kind of racial justice intervention. But my argument is going to be that that effort to deliver it has been constrained by a performance of post-racial pragmatism. One might call it assimilationist. One might call it simply an effort to deliver something on race within the existing ideological and political constraints, rather than trying to push at those constraints. I'm going to argue that it has particular.
None of this means anything. No. What the hell does anyone have any idea what this woman just said? Because I have, like 250 people in the chat right now? I have no idea what she just said. And I like to think that even when I'm not drinking, I'm a relatively, intelligent person. And I've read a lot of academic literature, and I feel like I can figure this stuff out. But, I truly have no idea what she just said. And that's part of the point. That's what these people do. They just string together words and they make it all sound very complicated, but they don't actually say anything.
Gender dimensions as well.
And that's it.
Okay.
That's all we're listening to. All right, thank God. We're back. And we're having normal sound. Sorry about that, guys. All right, now we're going to get to the part where he's going to talk about the bill. Now, how many of you think that he's actually going to read the text of the bill? If you think he's going to read the text of the bill, type in Y. If you think he's not going to read the text of the bill, type in N. I want to see, because we're going to read the text of the bill at some point, but I want to see if he's going to do it for us or if we have to do it for ourselves, because he doesn't read the things he puts on the damn screen. But how many people think he's going to read? I want a prediction. Y if you think he's going to read the bill. No, N if you think he's not. No. Nope. Jacob, we don't have high hopes for you. We do not have faith in you in the chat, Jacob. If you typed in N, please make sure you hit that like button. Thank you. All right, we're gonna give him a chance to read the bill, but if he does not read it, we're gonna go back and read it ourselves when this is done. Even Glenn Beck read the bill on his show, Jacob. Glenn Beck read this entire thing. Are you less honest than Glenn Beck? Let's see. Now I can't hear him. Why can't I hear him? What is going on? Why can't I hear him? Okay, I heard.
It's not in the.
Okay, hang on. Back up. Talk. Oh my god. Why doesn't this guy know how to use Zoom? Don't they teach exclusively on Zoom right now?
I think was first introduced.
This guy he has a PhD. He has a PhD.
Just defines the divisive concepts that are to be barred by the bill if passed and signed into law. And I wanted to just, I'm not going to read through it, but I wanted people to take a moment to...
I'm not going to read through it. Why, Jacob? Why? Why aren't you reading through the concepts that HB 544 actually bans? Why? Why are you less honest than Glenn Beck, Jacob? All right, let's read through the concepts the bill bans, because we are going to be ethically honest about this. All right, HB 544 bans the following divisive concepts. It bans teaching that one race or sex is inherently superior to another race or sex. And you know why he's not reading this? Because it sounds fundamentally silly to oppose a bill that bans that teaching that one race or sex is superior to another race or sex. That's why. B, it bans the state of New Hampshire. It bans teaching that the state of New Hampshire or that the United States is fundamentally racist or sexist. It bans teaching that an individual, by virtue of his or her race or sex, is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously. D, it bans teaching that an individual should be discriminated against or receive adverse treatment solely or partly because of his or her race or sex. E, it bans teaching that one race or sex cannot and should not attempt to treat others without respect to race or sex. F, it bans teaching that an individual's moral character is necessarily determined by his or her race or sex. G, it bans teaching an individual by virtue of his or her race or sex bears responsibility for actions committed in the past by other members of the same race or sex. H, it bans teaching that any individual should feel discomfort, guilt, anguish, or any form of psychological distress on account of his or her race or sex. I, it bans teaching that meritocracy or traits such as a hard work ethic are racist or sexist or were created by a particular race to oppress another race. And J, it bans the teaching that the term divisive concepts includes any other form of race or sex stereotyping or any form of race or sex scapegoating. Now, does anyone in the chat have a problem with this bill? Does anyone in the chat want to take the position that these are concepts that we should be teaching people using taxpayer money? That seems pretty silly. Seems pretty silly to me. It seems pretty silly to me that mandating that the state should be able to make people feel guilty because of the race with which they were born, that seems pretty silly. But that's just me. All right, let's go.
Sort of glance at this, because part of my thinking is that the divisive concepts here are meant to represent critical race theory, but I have found that they don't match up with my experience or understanding of critical race theory.
How would you know that, Jacob? You refuse to read the concepts.
And just one last comment before I give you a minute to look at this. Although the text of the bill does not identify critical race theory outright, it is the bill is modeled on that executive order signed by President Trump last year. And in introducing the bill, one of the sponsors did identify specifically critical race theory as a target of the bill.
Duh.
So it's not in the language of the text, but it is in the spirit of the bill.
And now he's just going to sit there and expect other people to read this on their own? Okay, let me take this time of silence to point out. This guy has a PhD in motherfucking education. And he is just sitting there and waiting for people to read this slide on their own. Why isn't he teaching? Apparently he teaches in the UNH Educational Leadership Program. Why isn't he teaching? Why am I teaching more on this reaction video to his stupid webinar than he taught in the webinar itself? This is so goddamn lazy. I'm just going to keep ranting for as long as this guy's quiet. Oh, wait.
So I'll
He's back.
Continue now. Before I move from this slide, I just wanted to note that I guess if I'm to put my finger on why I disagree with these notions as being critical race theory, I would say that. Sorry, my daughter. What do you mean?
He has a daughter, which means that someone has actually had sex with this person. In theory. I guess you can have daughters other ways, but in theory.
Yeah, where's Mama? Okay.
Yeah, Mama.
Go ahead. If I were to put my finger on why I disagree with these as representing critical race theory.
Can you, okay, side note. And I know this is inappropriate, but it's happy hour and I have, well, probably a quarter of a bottle of champagne in me. Can you imagine like having sex with these people? I can't. It would be the most ridiculous, boring, awful sex ever. I just don't understand. I don't get it.
Is that I think that these suppose that critical race theory is teaching or theorizing that there are inherent qualities or essential qualities to race or gender. And I believe that is contrary to my understanding of critical race theory.
Well, then, Jacob, if these statements do not align with critical race theory, then what the hell is your problem? You cannot argue on one hand, critical race theory is good and it is for the betterment of the world, and these silly politicians, they just don't understand critical race theory, and then on the other hand argue, you know what, I don't see the concepts in this bill having any relation to critical race theory at all. Does it or doesn't it? Make up your mind. Why are you doing a whole webinar about critical race theory if you are then saying that the bill has nothing to do with critical race theory?
I could say more, but I'll move on to the next slide, which identifies 7 tenets of critical race theory, and this is drawn from an ASH, Association for the Study of Higher Education report from 2015. It's about 109 pages. It's one of their sort of primers on a big topic, and this is from the introductory section of the text, where they identify some of the background and history of CRT, but they distill critical race theory into these 7 different tenets. Some of which we find in some writings or discussions, and some of which we find in other writings and topics. I tried in the suggested readings at the end of this presentation, or in the last 2 slides of the slide deck, to identify readings that would approach these different.
Listen, I'm actually like, there are things that I like soy in. I prefer soy milk to regular milk. I always get soy milk in my coffee. And I say that because this guy has had way too much goddamn soy. Like, this is I'm like, listen, man, you got to do soy in moderation. Like, you have to be fucking logical about this. This is all, dude.
Tenets, but this is more in line with what I think.
Okay, so the 7 tenets of CRT that the permanence of racism. Racism is perpetual. Experiential knowledge and counter storytelling. That's what it is. Interest convergence theory, intersectionality, whiteness as property. I can't wait for him to explain that one. Critique of liberalism. Oh, so they don't even like critical race theory doesn't like liberals. Excellent. Commitment to social justice.
What I think of when I think of critical race theory, as opposed to essentialist qualities embedded in race and gender. And the last thing that I wanted to share is a blank slide. This may work, this may not work. I was hoping that through the course of this conversation, and I'm going to finish talking soon so that we can have
the blank slide is going to be the only slide he actually talks about in this entire presentation.
Broader conversation. I was hoping that in the chat function that folks might enter some terms or phrases that they think.
You know what was really funny about this is they were talking before this recording started of like how they were so impressed that like 22 people showed up to this recording, and I'm fairly certain that at least 7 of those people were people that I sent to record the thing, and one of them was me. I was logged in an undercover account, but the audio in my recording didn't work for some reason. But I had several spies. There was espionage going on in this webinar, so I'm fairly certain that any chat he gets is going to be from someone that was in there performing espionage.
Of that they believe are representative of critical race theory in their experience in reading or in teaching critical race theory. And my goal is to create another sort of word cloud that's not just my thoughts and sort of a broader sort of feeling about it, but drawn from this community of thinkers right here.
Yes, an elite community of thinkers and spies.
So I'm gonna stop sharing the screen now.
There he is.
And I'm going.
See, now you guys are gonna want to make his video smaller again, aren't you? You know you will. You know you asked for it, guys. You asked for it.
To open it up for broader discussion. This is, you know, what do we mean by critical race?
Okay, so we have another 40 minutes left to go in this webinar, and I just want to point out the first 20 minutes, he didn't explain anything. Literally explained nothing about what critical race theory is. Literally nothing. All this webinar's purpose is to fight back against HB 544. That's it.
Race theory. So I'm interested in hearing what other folks think about when they think about critical race theory. And no need to raise hands or anything. Just pop off. Just
chat in, spies. I wish I had watched this. I was doing another live stream at the time, which is why I couldn't. I would. Oh, you guys know I would have been such a troll in this if I was available to participate in this chat. It would have happened. It would have been amazing.
I was expecting a more lively discussion at the end.
Jacob, they were all hate watching you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Your bubble has been burst. I'm sorry.
Would anybody like to recommend a text that they've read or talk about?
Someone please recommend new discourses. Please recommend new discourses.
How they encountered critical race theory.
James Lindsay, new discourses.
Either in work or in class.
That would have been goddamn epic if the only person that chatted in was like, I heard about it from Dr. James Lindsay from maybe you've heard of James Lindsay?
Or in research, that may be a good place for us to start.
I could contribute something, Jacob.
Oh, he has friends. He has friends. He has friends. Okay, we're going to hear from others. Okay, excellent. Just as much soy, obviously.
Ben, I can't hear you.
Oh, let me try again here. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, Ben.
I can hear Ben.
Oh.
Wait, hang on. I want to go back to this lady. I want to go back.
I can't hear you.
Hang on.
Let me try again here. Can you hear me now?
I can hear Ben.
Okay, look at this. Look at it. Protect kids, not guns. Obviously, another faculty member at University of New Hampshire. Excellent. Excellent job, UNH!
Oh. Jacob, can you hear me?
Someone says she looks familiar. Why? I think she looks like the woman in, what was that balloon movie? Up. I think that's where I think she looks familiar from.
No, I'm still not hearing you. I'm not sure why.
So many academics and no one knows how to use Zoom. Listen, I'm going to say this. I get made fun of all the time for having gone to like an online school, but you know what? Even when I did this over 10 years ago now, like my teachers knew how to use technology, dude. They knew how to use all this stuff. It wasn't a problem. So don't tell me how the freaking traditional schools are so much better. You can't even use Zoom.
Other folks, can you hear me?
Jacob, it's okay. We don't need you to hear him. It doesn't matter.
Yes.
Jacob's sound is turned down. That's why.
Okay, it's my problem then, not Ben's problem.
Yes.
Maybe I'll just type my thoughts in into the chat.
No, Ben, share your thoughts.
I got you now.
Share your thoughts,
Okay,
Ben.
great. I mean, I may be a little biased because I just finished a class which Jacob taught. So we had a really great discussion in our recent class, and we read a work by Laurie Patton that talked a lot about the disruptive nature of critical race theory. So I think there's a component of it that is very active, and it's not seeking to integrate change through normal means of change making in institutions, but through more significant progressive sort of aggressive changes.
Wait, hang on. Exactly this. No one wants to share their thoughts because the bias response team will get their shake hands. Yeah, it's probably true. I don't even know what this guy's saying.
Is that specifically target the societal issues that CRT brings up. So what I think of when I think of critical race theory, and I thought that which I don't know if you're planning to share that particular one, Jacob, but that one was really helpful for me in framing this sort of idea.
Yeah, that text is on the suggested readings list.
That lady, we can hear you, sounded like a text-to-speech bot. Maybe a little bit. I don't know about that.
PowerPoint, which I am going to share in the chat right now.
Holy shit. Tell me her name is actually Velma. Is it? What is Velma from? She looks like a Velma.
I think that's one of the critiques that Kimberly Crenshaw was getting toward in that snippet was that, disruption is not a bad word necessarily.
Okay, so what did I say earlier? Critical race theory is about destabilizing our institutions so they can Scooby-Doo! That's what Velma's from! Yes! I wonder if someone was signed in as Velma, like as a spy. I don't know. But okay, so so right now they're talking about how like critical race theory is revolutionary, critical race theory is destructive. What did I say to you guys? Critical race theory is specifically designed to critical race theory is disruptive, not destructive, but that's a Freudian slip. It's designed to destabilize our institutions. That's what it is. And they're saying it. They're saying it right now. Critical race theory is revolutionary. Critical race theory is disruptive. And we have texts and we talked about they are destroyers. Exactly.
Even in the community of learning that the Office of Community Equity and Diversity and Sustainability are working on right now in preparing for the 21-day challenge. Dr. Karen Spiller often speaks about or has spoken about accomplices rather than merely allies. So there is an active component to it. It's not
Accomplices, not allies. You guys are all accomplices right now. You guys are all accomplices in my counterculture little war. I don't know.
just
Oh, dude, maybe that could be the name for so people have been asking me if I like have a name for like my followers, and I don't because I'm like not that creative. Maybe I can call you guys accomplices. You're my accomplices. Does anyone like that name? I think that could be fun.
watching and learning necessarily.
And I wonder if that's also what raises people's hackles and makes people fearful of it, is that it is taking on the status quo in a significant way. So I think that
it's taking on the status quo in a significant way.
Drives some of the resistance to it as well, and some of the legislation and political conflict that we've seen around it.
No, I think you're right. Disruption of status quo, I think, is.
See, okay, so Angry Pig says something. I want to address this. Because obviously we're now having two conversations, guys. We're watching the webinar, but we're also talking about names for my followers, which is probably more important. Angry Pig says, we can't be Carlin's army or whatever, the power will get to our heads. I actually have thought about, like, the unwoke army. I want to make a t-shirt that says unwoke army. We can have ranks. That might be okay. We can probably do both. I'm gonna figure this out.
Is part and partial of.
I like the ranking idea.
You know, CRT has been described as a theory, but it's also been described as a movement, and I think that, disruption of status quo is part and partial of that movement's goals.
The Unwoken says, "Oh my god, that's a good one." The Unwoken.
So I just shared a file. It's the PowerPoint. I'm reading through the comments here.
The Disruptives.
Brian, I don't think I know Brian, but Brian.
No, Joanon, you can't be the God Emperor. Only Trump is the God Emperor. No, that is Trump. Come on.
Writes, I find the work in Discrit particularly compelling, and I wonder what folks think of how CRT has been put in conversation with other intersectionally marginalized identities. Brian, do you feel comfortable unmuting and talking?
Oh my god, wouldn't it have been amazing if I had been like in this chat and like secretly trolling him and he had asked me to unmute myself and come onto the screen? Dragonwater says, as long as there are no mandatory tattoos. No, but maybe we'll do optional tattoos. I actually, just before this webinar, I decided that the logo for Actively Unwoke is going to be a fox, because foxes are cunning and clever, and we need to outfox the enemy. And so maybe we could have a fox tattoo.
Talking to that point a little bit?
Certainly. So some of the work that I do is circling in the area of discrit, which is critical race theory put in conversation with disability studies. And, there's been books and articles published around this about the fact that it may be more powerful to talk about some of these marginalized identities.
Yeah, there's a fox emoji. Yes. Yeah, I like foxes. I actually said back when I did my ayahuasca retreat in Peru, they were asking us, like, we all had to decide on a spirit animal, and mine was the fox. I love foxes.
Basically in a more intersectional way. We know that special education in the United States really can't be separated from racism within the school systems in the United States in either direction. And, there's been calls.
Wait. Did he just say that racism and special education can't be separated? Hang on. Rewind.
conversation with disability studies. And, there's been books and articles published around this about the fact that it may be more powerful to.
Well, if Antifa uses a fox, that's all the more reason. We're taking back foxes. Foxes are beautiful creatures.
Talk about some of these marginalized identities basically in a more intersectional way. We know that special education in the United States really can't be separated from racism within the school systems.
Special education in the United States can't be separated from racism in the school system. All right.
In the United States, in either direction. And, there's been calls to try to, again, put these things more in conversation with each other. And I think that there's some people have certainly.
Constance makes a good point with the Wolverines. Shit. No, I want it to be a fox.
Heeded those calls. And I think that some.
Oh, but Wolverines is so good and Red Dawn is so good. Oh, now I'm conflicted. Now I don't know what to do. Okay, I want to vote in the chat. If I should keep the logo as a fox, type F. If I should make the logo a Wolverine, type W.
Others occasionally resist those calls, worrying that by putting it all in one basket, it may dilute any one of the individual voices. So I was just curious what your thoughts or what other people's thoughts were about that.
I think that one of the reasons that Kimberly Crenshaw's work is so important to critical race theory.
All right, it looks pretty 50-50. I think foxes are winning out. I think it's fox. Fox. Yes, it's going to be fox. Okay, I've decided. I think Wolverine is good, but Wolverines are done, guys. Come on. Wolverine was very Red Dawn in the 80s when that was a much more in-your-face time, right? We need to be even more cunning and more clever to defeat the woke today. We need to be foxes. Schwan Hammond says just what we need, more intersectional talk. Fox in socks. In Bruce Campbell's biography, he tells this story about how he was shooting a movie and he went off into the woods and there was a fox and he was all excited about the fox and he was taking pictures of the fox and he went back to the set and he said, guys, come over here. There's a fox. And no one wanted to come and see the fox. And so he was like, all the more fox for me. It's going to be a fox. We can maybe make other animals with t-shirts and stuff too. We can have a lot of fun with it, but maybe we'll have maybe there will be a special high level of the unwoke army that achieved Wolverine status or something. I don't know. We're going to figure out a ranking system. Yeah, badgers I think are good. We could do velocity. We're going to figure out a whole animal ranking system. Everyone can be in at fox level.
As a sort of larger theoretical world is because she is directly addressing that notion of intersectionality. I don't know if she coined the phrase or not, but she speaks of misogynoir, which is speaking directly to the intersection of race and gender discrimination that she and many other women of color experience.
Godar Bazaar says, I just got out of my meeting at work. I'm going to be forced to do 2.5 hours I'm going to be forced to do 2.5 hours to do critical race theory training. Guess who I'm going to send you the training, Carlin? Guess who's going to send? Yeah. Yes. Guys, if you ever have to do, and I know I butchered that super chat. The glass is getting more empty. But if you guys ever do this type of training, please send it in to me. You can reach me at drcarlin.com. You can DM me on Twitter. I'm going to be in my new website that I'm creating. There's going to be ways to submit things. So that's going to be taken care of. I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to do that yet, but I'm going to create a way for you to submit stuff. But please, if you do this training, document it, record it, take pictures of things, get your printouts, give me the PDFs, whatever you want, send it in to me. Even if you're not sure I'm going to like it, I'd rather you send it in to me anyway. That way, at least I can take a look at it. It doesn't have to be as overt as the Coke Be Less White training, but I want to create Part of what I'm going to be doing on this new project is I'm going to be creating a whole archive of these trainings. I'm going to be creating lists of companies that do these trainings so people know which ones to go to and know which ones to avoid. All right, I really need to pay attention to this webinar. This webinar is getting out of hand. We're only halfway through.
I was thinking as well about how there's a text that I used to teach, and I'm sorry I don't have it.
Yes, Michael gets honorary status because Michael is awesome. He wrote an awesome op-ed supporting HB 544 in New Hampshire. We like Michael. He's a good dude. Also, Michael does not believe that there is such a thing as libertarian socialists, which apparently a whole bunch of socialists on Twitter think they're libertarians or something. I don't know. It's stupid. Whatever.
The title at hand, but it was a text by Judith Lorber. It's from the 90s, I think, and it was about disability studies and making it more central to sort of the studies of underrepresented populations. And through the course of that text, she writes about the intersections of disability and gender, and disability and race.
You cannot have special education without misogyny. You cannot have special education without racism. Godard Bazaar says it's monthly training. I'm doing an organizational bias and microaggressions first. My job at the local library, so avoiding it is hard. Yeah, librarians are extra woke, but I'll tell you what, I've actually gotten a lot of messages from librarians who are like, not all of us are woke.
And so I think that I don't have any texts, at the tips of my fingers right now that address your question directly, but I believe that there is a lot of overlap between disability discrit and CRT. Are there any texts that you are thinking about, Brian, or any texts that you might want to pop into the chat?
Yeah, guys, I know that libertarian socialist is a contradictory term, but try telling that to the libertarian socialists on Twitter who are like, Noam Chomsky is a libertarian socialist, and here's a Wikipedia article about libertarian socialists. And I'm like, just because Noam Chomsky said something doesn't make it true. It's not a real thing. You can't be a libertarian and a socialist at the same time. They're two completely contradictory ideologies. But people on Twitter are people on Twitter. It is what it is.
I'll pop a couple of things into the chat.
Fantastic.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Anyone else? Texts or approaches that to CRT that you've come across or found useful? And go ahead.
This is Kate Slater. Sorry, I'm in the car, so I.
Guys, do you remember Kate? Kate was, I believe, the presenter of our webinar that we did last week for Happy Hour live stream, the other UNH webinar. I'm glad to see that all these people are talking to each other and they're forming connections and bonds. Kate is the person who wrote her webinar at 5 a.m. while laying in bed, and she came up with the 4 S's for white people. The 4 S's are show up, shut up, I don't remember the other 2 S's, but it was basically show up and shut up. And then there was 2 other S's that basically meant the same thing.
Can't actually type and driving back to the doctor's appointment.
Yeah, don't type.
The thing I was interested about is, I think a lot of when we talk about the kind of critiques of CRT and the kind of, I guess, more, dare I say, like incendiary aspects of it, the part for me that gets lost in the conversation is the humanizing aspects of CRT and the ways in which, especially when you talk about CRT and education, how that's built into the framework, especially when you think about counter storytelling as a way of centering lived experience.
Dragonwater says, Carlin, can you explain why this underrepresented makes sense? Why should groups be represented in certain amounts? It makes no sense. I mean, I think the goal is actually good. They want to make sure that they are hearing from people from different perspectives that offer different points of view of the world. I have no problem with that. Honestly, I have no problem from hearing with people who have, disabilities, because we want to make sure that they have what they need to be functional in the world and to have happy and productive lives. I have no problem listening to people who have much different experiences than I do in this world to make sure that we are making opportunity available for everyone. And this is something that I really think that people should keep in mind. Our goal should be to make sure opportunities are available to everyone. In order to do that, we do have to understand different experiences in the world, but that is not the goal of critical race theory. Critical race theory is not about equal access to opportunities. Critical race theory is about a quality of outcomes. And those are two fundamentally different ideals.
That have always been on the margins. The great potential to humanize the experiences of students who have also been on the margins through CRT. That's the point where, I think I don't understand what is so, again, I hate to use the word like incendiary or inflammatory about CRT. And I think that speaks.
Kate doesn't understand what's so incendiary about CRT. When Kate literally did a webinar in which she told white people that their role was to shut up and listen. Not incendiary at all, Kate.
When we're talking about disrupting the status quo, if you look at the humanizing aspects of CRT, you recognize that the status quo is dehumanizing, right? So, if you talk about disrupting the status quo, that can be seen in different.
The status quo is dehumanizing. Because people like you make it dehumanizing. I don't dehumanize people in my real life. I don't even dehumanize socialists on the internet who think that they're libertarians.
That can be positive or negative. But when you're talking about a system that has historically and present day and probably in the future continued to dehumanize.
Yeah, exactly. She thinks she has black friends. You know what? In her webinar, the one that we looked at last week, and this is also on Actively Unwoke's channel, guys, if you want to go back and watch it, she talked about how she texted her Asian and I think black friend. Oh no, here's what it was. She texted her black friends after George Floyd, and they were basically like, "I don't want to hear from you." It was something like that. Dragon Water, and thank you, Dragon Water, for all these super chats. I was talking about thing more like black people are overrepresented in COVID numbers or women are underrepresented in tech. I mean, I don't think that the goal should be perfect representation, but do we want to make sure that opportunities in tech are available to women? Well, yes. I'm sorry, I've worked with a lot of startups. Startups sometimes have a very, very bro-ish culture that is not conducive to women being successful there. It's just the truth. And I don't say that as someone who's I've never been overly oh my God, I'm a poor, meek woman, I need other people to do things for me. No. But there are actually legitimate problems. And again, I want to emphasize to people, I know we're pushing back on this. I know we're fighting this, and we should be. But don't lose your humanity in the process. Don't push back on everything that you think might just be something of the radical left, because there are actually real problems that need to be solved, and that those impact real people.
Certain populations of students, but the status quo all day long. This is the liberatory aspect of CRT that I find the most appealing. And I think that specifically when I think of Ryan mentioned Discrit, but when you think about people who are writing, Lat Crit or Native Crit, they're talking again in these more liberatory frameworks. So, Danny Solorzano and Terry Yoso, Gloria Ladson-Billings, William T, but also people who are, Bettina Love with abolitionist teaching is indubitably linked with CRT, and Chris Emden with hip hop ed. These are all joyful, humanizing frameworks within which we can place CRT.
She just called CRT a joyful, humanizing framework. I think Kate needs some more joy in her life.
That's all. Back to the road.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And one of the things that I think I came to the PhD program as someone who is interested in sort of legal aspects labor relations. And so I really am drawn to the texts in the CRT sort of literature that are talking about law. So, you know, Cheryl Harris and Derek Bell and Kimberly Crenshaw are really important for me.
I really feel like half of the time in these trainings, these people are just listing off other people that they've read articles by. That's all they do. Like XYZ and Johnny Jones and Susie Q and blah, 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 blah. And I'm just so inspired by all their works. They don't ever actually talk about what they say, but that's what they do.
And Delgado. But they also use stories. I mean, Cheryl Harris has a really great piece that was just republished last year, I think, by the Harvard Law Review, if I'm remembering correctly. And it's all about like, there's legal and analysis about court cases and things like that. Whiteness is Property is the title. And she's analyzing law to make the claim or the argument that whiteness is a property that has been valued and protected in law from the get-go.
Whiteness is a property that has been valued and protected in the law from the get-go. Can I sell my whiteness? How much money can I sell my whiteness for? What happens if I sell my whiteness? Am I not white anymore? If whiteness is property, then why can't I sell it? Like, would Jacob still consider me white? Can I identify as something else? That's how property works.
But she begins that piece with a story about her grandma. It's a story that she's telling about her,
Oh, Kimberly Crenshaw told a story, so it must be true.
A relative of hers who grew up in a time when, during Jim Crow, and she passed in order to keep a job. But she writes also about how that kind of undid her sense of self on a daily basis, you know? And Derek Bell too wrote fiction that is humanizing, but also funny.
The key word there, Jacob, is fiction. Fiction, not reality. Fiction.
What is it? Space Traders, I think, which was a story about aliens coming to the shores of America, and they make they offer a deal to the government of the United States that if they just give up all their black residents to let the aliens take them away, that they'll give them everything they need for a clean, efficient energy infrastructure. And all this. And the humor in this story is how obvious it is that the answer should be no. And there's only one member of the cabinet who's making that point. But it shows just how obvious the human aspect should be.
Can you imagine taking a class with this guy?
And it's satirical and it's gallows humor, but that's, I think, inseparable. The counter narrative, the counter storytelling is really crucial. And thanks, Brian, for popping those texts in to the chat.
Jacob, I had another question. Sorry, I just can't help myself. But I recently, this is Kate again. I came across an article by Nolan Cabrera, and it was this really interesting take that he made the claim essentially that in critical race theory that it actually does a disservice to call it critical race theory because there's no theory in it. And the point that he was making,
there is no theory in critical race theory. Okay.
is that in critical race theory, and I somewhat agree.
If she says it's based on lived experiences and that means it's the truth, it's not theoretical, it's based on our lived experience, it's the truth. I swear, if she says that, I am downing the rest of this glass and pouring myself some more.
/ disagree with this. There's not actually theory in most of the writings on it, in that there is not really a theory of hegemony and structures and race as a construct. And the point that he was making is we should call CRT an analytical framework as opposed to a theoretical
Oh, thank God I don't have to drink the rest of that glass. Okay. I probably will anyway.
one, which I think, you know, to any person outside of this chat probably is like, okay, splitting hairs, but it actually matters,
Yes,
you know, in
Kate.
the way that you talk about whether you're analyzing something or theorizing something, right? And so I wonder, because you come from the legal studies background, what do you think about that take?
I mean, I think there is theory. I mean, one of the early examples is Derek Bell writes about the Brown v. Board of Education decision and describes the interest convergence theory, which upends the sort of, when people think of Brown v. Board of Education, they think of it as a moral achievement and the repudiation of an immoral decision, Plessy v.
Dragon Water says technically a theory is a hypothesis that has not yet been disproven. So critical theory is not a theory. It has been disproven many times. Bravo, Dragon Water.
Ferguson. But he analyzes it from a different perspective and says that this wasn't because of some moral, upstanding ethical position on the part of the Supreme Court justices. It was
Lotus Mortis asks, what is their definition of whiteness? They haven't said. That is a very good question. They haven't said. This person with a PhD in education has not taught us about what the definition of whiteness is, as they're talking about whiteness being property or something.
a convergence of interests. It was to the benefit of the governing powers, the white powers. I don't mean white power in that sense, but it was in
the governing powers, the white powers. Oh my God. These people are such white supremacists. What? Like, I don't know how you cannot watch this stuff and not believe these people are white supremacists. These people think that white people control everything. They think that white people are the default. They think that white people are normal. Like, he literally just said white power, then corrected me like, oh, I don't mean that white power, but of course he did. Come on. Like, these people are such white supremacists.
In the interests of white people who held power in politics and in economics.
So he just differentiated between white power and white people who held power. Two totally different things. Totally different.
To allow for desegregation. And I think that is a...
I kind of want to reach out to this guy and offer him to come on my channel to debate me. I don't do debates. You guys know that's the rule, but like, I don't even think this would be a debate. I don't think it would be like that big of a thing. I think it would... Okay, I would actually probably feel bad. I would kill this guy in a debate.
A theory that he espouses by looking at not just the case itself, but what follows afterwards. I mean, desegregation in many cases is still not complete, and it's more than half a century later. I think that there has been criticism.
Yeah, I should get him and Kate on at the same time. I would defeat them both. I'd be like a ninja. I'd be going in all directions.
Of CRT as being...
Christian can come on and debate on my side. Christian, you and me versus Kate and this soy boy. And you, Christian, it would be great for you too, because like when you talk, I would be able to say to Kate, shut up and listen to black voices.
Too much based in anecdote or too much based in qualitative approaches that are individualistic. But I think that there's also a lot to be said for the amassed data literature around disparate outcomes in education. I'm talking about disparate outcomes on the basis of laws in education, in food systems, in geography, in real estate. I mean, pick an industry, and there's a law somewhere that has shown disparate impacts on people of color. I mean,
guys, I'm gonna get a pipe, not because like I would ever smoke out of a pipe, but just because like when I'm listening to someone like this, if I'm gonna be doing these reaction videos all the time to these trainings, I just want to be able to sit back and like put my pipe in my mouth. Maybe I'll get one that does bubbles or something. Benjamin Boyce has a vape pipe. I need to get Benjamin Boyce's vape pipe. That's what needs to happen. Dragonwater says, Carlin, you wouldn't kill this guy in a debate. You would nullify their existences. I'm pretty sure I've already nullified his existence in this reaction video, so I'm already guilty of that.
In COVID, just the health systems that are failing or have been failing people of color for forever.
If Christian, if we ever do debate this, we both need to get one of those vape pipes and just be there. That can be part of our strategy. Is just sit back, do our vape pipe, like
It's now a glaring example.
Psych out the enemy.
Same kind of disparate outcome that I think CRT is engaging with. So is there one theory? No, I don't believe that. I've heard it suggested that it should be called critical race studies, or like you said, that it shouldn't be called a theory, but more of an analytical framework. Doesn't matter what we call it. Yeah, I guess. I think it does many things. And I think that there are a lot of theories that are embedded into it.
Let's see. Like Lovecat says, hang on, I'm gonna bring Lovecat's chat up on the screen. Your fox emoji needs a pipe. I think that's a really good idea. It could be like, what was that movie about the kids with cancer and the one girl was wearing a t-shirt that had a picture of a pipe on it and it said, "This is not a pipe" under it. Be like that. Be like that level of irony. All right, I'm actually getting drunk right now. This is going off the rails. We need to finish this. I have 20 minutes left.
Anybody else? Thoughts?
Fox with pipe.
When you think of CRT? What does it mean to you?
Oh, what does CRT mean to me? This is what CRT means to me.
Well, Jacob, could I ask a question? Or
yes, Velma, you can ask a question in a second, but how about critical race delusions? Yes. CRD. It's so close.
turn us in a direction toward the House bill.
Yes.
Oh, yes, Judy. Ask a question about the House bill. Okay, I'm prepared.
I'm really like intrigued and troubled by this use of divisive concept.
Wait. You just spent the entire goddamn webinar talking about how critical race theory is disruptive. It is revolutionary. And now you're all like, it's not divisive. Why? We are very troubled by the use of the term divisive concepts. We want you to, maybe we should change the text of the bill to revolutionary concepts or disruptive concepts. Would that be okay? Would that be acceptable?
Right. And their list of what they are saying are divisive concepts. I wonder even if you brought that slide back up.
Yeah, I'm getting it right now.
Yeah, bring that slide back up, Jacob. Do it.
I mean, I don't think it slips by anyone's attention that some of this, this
here's where I'd smoke my pipe.
Of critical race theory or divisive comments includes like co-opting inclusive language, right?
They can't even, they're not even going to address anything that's on the slide. Like, it's co-opting inclusive language. Oh my God.
So if you name these critiques, now I don't feel included anymore.
What makes you not feel included, Judy? What are you not included by? What? Which one specifically makes you not feel included as a white woman?
You've created, right? So my feelings are hurt. So you've created this non-inclusive environment.
What? I'm not getting belligerent, arg. This is not the alcohol. This is what this stuff does to me. It's a little bit the alcohol. But it's mostly what this stuff does to me. I have told you guys many times I've descended into madness in the last year. And it is not because of the drinking. I don't drink enough to handle this. YouTube is how I cope with this situation.
So there seems to be these kind of like, you know, like rhetorical tricks going on.
Yeah, I'm trying to. So I feel the exasperation, and you know, at the same time that this bill is up, there is another bill, not in the same committee. I think it's in the Education Committee in New Hampshire, that suggests that college campuses in particular are not zones where free speech is allowed. And so, and I don't.
Gee, I wonder why there might be a bill suggesting that college campuses are not zones where free speech is allowed. I wonder why that might be. Dragonwater says, I'm 32 and have never been drunk, and this makes me want to get drunk. No. I really don't drink all that much, honestly. Like, this bottle of champagne has been sitting in my fridge. Well, actually, it hasn't been that long, because my husband drank the other bottle of champagne because it was sitting in the fridge for so long. Just for happy hour, just for you guys. I can only get through this by drinking.
It's not from the same sponsors, but it is from the same political party that these bills are coming from.
I wonder if Republicans would be welcome in Jacob's class. I wonder what would happen if I wore a MAGA hat to or a MAGA mask. I would wear my MAGA mask every day to Jacob's class, and I'm sure that my speech would be respected and my opinions would be taken just as seriously as everyone else's.
And I once asked in a in a course in my doctoral studies, you know, what is consistency and why do we care about consistency? And when I think about this bill and that other bill, I think of them as wildly inconsistent with each other. Wildly inconsistent. Speaking of having an underlying theory, there is no theory. It's just, you know, I feel like I'm not allowed to say whatever I want to say, but I also at the same time want to stop other people from saying things that I'm uncomfortable with.
Jacob, you are literally giving a webinar under the University of New Hampshire's name where you're allowed to say whatever you want to say. Stop.
Those are two things that are just inconsistent with them, with each other. You know, just as modes of thought, let alone as laws to be enforced. I don't know if that really answers the question that you, but I feel exasperated and I'm trying to express that exasperation. Consistency is not always achievable and not always long lasting. But the platform of a political party is, I would expect it to have a little bit more consistency in its approach.
It is consistent, Jacob. The bill actually says, if you read the whole bill instead of just the concepts list, the bill actually says you can teach these concepts. You just can't teach them as though they are true with no other points of view. You have to teach them as some people think this, other people think that. That's what the bill says. That is in the actual goddamn text of the bill. Not that verbatim language, because, you know, I don't know it off the top of my head, but that is in the bill.
Don't see how, number one, this bill could be enforced, except if
it could be enforced when your students spy on you, or when we go in your webinars and we see what you're teaching, and then we put that on the internet. And then at the same time, I call the state and let them know that you are in a taxpayer-funded institution and you're not following the law. That's how it can be enforced, Jacob.
There were, because what it says later in the bill is, or earlier and later in the bill, is that any public employer or any employer that is contracting with the state in one way or another cannot use these divisive concepts in trainings. So think of like diversity training or other HR-based bias.
Lies, lies, lies. You can do diversity training in organizations. Many diversity trainings do not teach these concepts. Stop lying to people, Jacob.
Trainings, and also suggests that these ideas can be taught, but only from a neutral and objective perspective, and that there would be.
Oh, he just said it! He just said it! Oh my God!
These ideas can be taught, but only from a neutral and objective perspective.
So you can teach these ideas just from a neutral or objective perspective. You mean you can actually teach everything you want to be able to teach? You just can't state it as though it's fact? And you just admit the bill said that? Oh my God, these people are so intellectually dishonest.
And that there would be appointees, political appointees, who would ensure the enforcement of this law.
Oh, Jacob, just for you, my friend, I will ensure the enforcement of this law when it comes to UNH for free.
Now, I don't know how many political appointees would be called for. I don't know how they would possibly be in every public employer.
I'll do it. Chris Sununu, I'll do it.
HR trainings and every higher education institution's classrooms. But I think that the idea is that it chills first if it can't actually enforce bans on this kind of thinking.
Well, Jacob, if you're so convinced that this can't be enforced, then what are you worried about? What are you worried about? When I'm driving down the street or the interstate at night and I have Waze on so that I see there are no cops around me, and I'm driving like 90 miles an hour and I know that the speed limit's not going to be enforced, do I worry about it? No, because no one's going to catch me. If you're so worried, or if you're so positive and sure that these can't be enforced, then why are you so worried about it?
I don't know. I'm exasperated by the idea that these are not the ideas that I think of when I think of critical race theory. And even if they were, I don't believe that there's a First Amendment.
If these are not the ideas of critical race theory, then why are you worried about it?
Argument to be made that you can stop someone from saying these things. Nor do I think that there's a due process approach.
Jacob, why do you want to teach that one race is or sex is inherently superior to another race or sex? Why do you want to teach that?
To relieving someone of their job because they are saying these things. I don't know.
So I think I want like who came up with this term divisive concept? I mean, has that been
Probably the same person who came up with the idea that critical race theory is revolutionary.
used in these other?
I believe that it's in the executive order that Donald Trump put out last September. The text of this bill is not verbatim, is not exactly the same as that executive order, but there is language about divisive concepts there. I think that it's it's in line with the idea that critical race theory is anti-American. That
True.
By suggesting there is some moral stain on the founding of this country and on its current practices and
Question for Jacob. What year was this country founded? What year was it founded, Jacob?
laws, and I think that there is some frustration that there is criticism of the United States, which of course is like part of the point of critical race theory. It's to be inquisitive and critical when necessary, and to point out when laws have been either overtly or in terms of disparate effects have been damaging to communities of color, or to Brian's point, to communities of disability or folks.
Well, it's a good thing that communities of disability are not even addressed in this bill, Jacob.
Who aren't the sort of cisgendered white male ideal of foregone eras.
So we now know the answer to this question. What problem does Jacob have with this bill? He wants to be able to teach that the state of New Hampshire or the United States is fundamentally racist. That is what his problem is. He wants to be able to teach that to his students, and he can't if he's getting taxpayer funding. I'm sorry, Jacob, you're going to have to go teach at SNU or, some other private college, and, you better hope they're not getting taxpayer funding for something, and of course they are, but, PG says, does anyone remember Van Dryson from Beavis and Butthead? I do not. I didn't really watch Beavis and Butthead. Every once in a while I would.
I don't know where the term comes from, but
the reason I say, and I do see Andrew has
Chris Rufo actually testified in the hearing like 2 people before Jacob. So he should know where the concept came from. It came from Chris Rufo, who you are familiar with, Jacob, because he testified in the same damn hearing you did.
his hand raised.
Yes. Andrew, go ahead when you want.
But I think this might be like a little, maybe too simple, but we can't live without divisive concepts. You know what a divisive?
What? Hang on. I need to let her finish.
Concept is mathematics. It's
mathematics is a divisive concept. Tell us more, Judy.
It's called division.
What the fuck? Okay. We're going to rewind and we're just going to listen to this from the start and we're just going to let it play out. Just going to let it play. This person teaches on the college level. Okay.
Foregone eras. I don't know where the term comes from, but
the reason I say, and I do see Andrew has his hand raised.
Yes. Andrew, go ahead when you want.
But I think this might be like a little, maybe too simple, but we can't live without divisive concepts. You know what a divisive concept is? Mathematics. It's called division. It's a divisive concept? Gender specific bathrooms. I mean, that's so to even
I am 100% making a clip of that little moment as soon as we're done watching this. What was that? Minute 46? Math is divisive because it has division. What the fuck is wrong with these people?
Say that you can claim divisive concepts when we use division all the time. Our grades, right? We divide students, we divide the curriculum into subjects. We divide people into age groups. So it's I know that's like very simplistic, but I don't want to give up this like taking away.
It's not simplistic, Judy. It's not acknowledging that there are multiple definitions for words.
Divisive concepts before
you are a college professor.
Even get into critical race theory, but I'll be quiet and let Andrew talk.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Yes, Andrew, go ahead.
Judy, I was just going to say, I totally agree with that, but let me make a sort of different point here. So I think this is basically legislation by intimidation, and then that chilling effect, Jacob, that you just talked about. And the other thing is, I think it, in as precisely a way that this legislation is framed, so too needs to be the response to it, whether that response is what you do as a result or whatever. I mean, putting aside the problems with the just term divisive concepts, I mean, these are divisive concepts, right? And anybody who's actually read anything about critical race theory wouldn't possibly teach any of these, right? And so,
I'm sorry, what? Anyone who's read anything about critical race theory wouldn't teach any of these? Have these people read White Fragility?
So it's putting up the straw person argument about what critical race theory is and what teachings on anti-racism is, and all.
If this is not critical race theory, then why are you so worried about it? Why are you guys freaking out to the extent that you're doing a whole fucking webinar pushing back against this bill? And then you're like, I don't even know why these definitions are in the bill at all, because this has nothing to do with critical race theory. Critical race theory theorists wouldn't even teach this in general. I don't even know why we're talking about this, guys. Then why are you worried about the bill? PG says, for as much as the left loves to talk about conspiracy theories, critical race theory is probably the craziest one. Yes.
All that. So, one race or sex is inherently superior to another or sex. I hope nobody who calls what they're doing critical race theory is teaching that. I mean, of course not. So
then why are you opposing the bill? Why is this so hard to understand? If this isn't really happening, if none of this stuff even has anything to do with critical race theory, then why do you oppose it?
if this law is passed, I'm not going to change a single thing that I'm doing, right?
Oh, good to know. Good to know, dude. So now we know to keep our eye on your class.
But that's not because I'm protected by the university or anything. It's just that I'm not doing.
University is a taxpayer-funded institution, Andrew. They ain't gonna protect you from this. You don't get shielded by working at the University of New Hampshire. No more critical race theory for you.
Doing any of these things, right?
Yeah.
But somebody who's working under a context of more vulnerability is going to, right? And not necessarily because they're teaching these concepts, these.
If they aren't teaching these concepts, then it doesn't matter how vulnerable they are. The law doesn't apply to them. Guys, if you're enjoying this, smash that like button. If you are enjoying me watching me get drunk on a Friday afternoon and rant about how stupid these people are, please smash that like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and subscribe. Double check to make sure YouTube did not subscribe you, all that stuff.
These topics poorly, but because the consequences are too great, right? So it's sort of terrorist in that kind of way. And so
it's terrorist. He just called this bill terrorism. I'm not going to change the way I teach at all, and this bill is terrorism.
So, I would love, I don't know if it comes from, some pattern of people that are on this call or whatever, but I would love to, if this law were actually passed, develop some guidance and say, like, you don't have to stop teaching race. You don't have to stop teaching, about any of these things. What you do have.
No, Andrew, if the law is passed, you literally cannot teach these things. You can teach them in context with other things. You can say some people think this, some people think that. But if this law is passed, and I think it will be, because it just got attached to the budget, you literally cannot teach these things. It's not hard. Patrick Justice says the bar for college degree must be really low. Dude, you're not kidding. You are not kidding, Patrick.
Have to do is, take a look at what you're saying and the claims that you're making and make sure you're not doing this, but we should be doing that anyway, right? I just want, this is a propagandistic effort to frame the conversation, not.
You guys are the ones doing a whole webinar about this, and you're calling it a propagandistic effort? Why'd you do the webinar then? Why'd you give it attention? Thank you, your pal. I appreciate it.
A particular threat around being able to teach on race or gender, or anything like that. It's very sophisticated, but it's it's vacant for people who are doing these things with any kind of or teaching on these things with any kind of sophistication, I think.
We all need to pay extra attention to Andrew. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think you're right that there is a straw person, propped up here, because I don't recognize critical race theory when I look at this list of divisive concepts. I don't recognize it at all. And
what we're learning from this webinar is that these people really don't understand what they're teaching. I genuinely believe these people mean it. I genuinely believe that they are being honest in their I really do. I think that they actually believe this shit. What we are learning from this is that they do not understand what they are teaching.
I have no idea what the chances are of the bill passing in the House or the Senate.
Very, very good. Just to give everyone a little update on the bill, just the other day, the bill was attached to the budget. Now, Chris Sununu really doesn't like this. He's already signaled to a couple senators. He was like, these two senators, they might just take care of that. No. I don't think that's going to happen, Chris. So basically what this means is the budget is almost certainly going to pass the House. We think we feel pretty good about that. We're going to see what happens when it gets to the Senate, but we think the votes are there. So essentially, if Chris Sununu doesn't want to veto the budget, he's going to have to suck it up. That's just the way it is. It was a boss move. It was a ninja move by the Republicans. This bill is one of the top priorities for the Republicans right now. They're fighting for it, guys. They really, really are. And they're having to fight for it against our goddamn rhino governor, who's trying to spoil the party because he's a secret Democrat in disguise.
New Hampshire. I think that the governor has indicated a willingness to veto it if it does pass. So there's that. He
ain't gonna veto the budget, Jacob. Not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. Sorry, I win, you lose. Dragon water. You're making me want to move to New Hampshire's. If only I didn't hate the snow. Honest to God, there has barely been any snow this year. And New Hampshire actually does do a really good job of taking care of the roads, much better than Vermont. So it's really not that bad in the winter. It's not as bad as people think it is.
But also, yeah, I don't think that anybody who's again, I think that there is a broad range of what critical race theory can be and can do or has said. I don't think any of these concepts fall into that broad swath of ideas.
Jacob, the quotes that you used at the beginning of the presentation literally say some of these things.
So I would say the same thing that you said. I don't think that I would have to change anything in the way that I approach my teaching.
Then don't. Watch what happens.
When it comes to other systemic inequities.
Yes, Jacob, please continue to teach these things as though this bill doesn't exist. Please do it. Please, Jacob. I will Freedom of Information Act all this shit, dude. You're at a public university.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. Go.
I would just offer one more thing is that, it's maybe a good reminder for those of us who at least want to be, want to have our compasses pointed in the direction of anti-racism, just to remind ourselves that you can do it poorly, right? I mean, you can teach anti-racism poorly in a way that maybe toes the line on some of these quote divisive concepts a little too much. If you have somebody with an audience who's saying, if you're white, you should feel guilty about being white or something like that in a really sort of flippant way.
Dude. Have none of you read the books that are actually out there in pop culture? Have none of you read How to Be an Anti-Racist? Have none of you read White Fragility? Why have I read these books and you haven't?
They're wanting to have a conversation about, anti-racism, but that's not a very sophisticated way to do it, right? And that opens up the sort of the project, right, to these kinds of vulnerabilities, right? So, that's a.
You're not wrong.
That might be a real issue, that folks should look at is let's not assume this is all high quality, right? So.
No, I think you're right.
Yes, you are correct, Andrew. White Fragility is incredibly low quality. Robin DiAngelo's work is incredibly low quality. Congratulations, you are correct.
And I think that in the testimony for the bill, there were folks who were arguing that critical race theory does just that it tells you that if you're white, that you're guilty. It tells you that if you're a man, that you're guilty, that kind of thing. But the problem with that framing and the problem with the framing of the concepts listed in this bill is that it points to the individual as an island, separate from history, separate from the impacts of law, the impacts of social practice.
Jacob is essentially telling us right now that he doesn't believe in individualism. That's what he's telling us.
And the whole point for me,
it's not about you as an individual. It's about all white people. And because you are white, you play into the system of whiteness. I don't make the rules.
of critical race theory, one of the sort of originating ideas is that this is not just about individual behavior. This is about systemic problems. And so I think you're right.
This is not about individual behavior. This is about systemic problems.
Right. I think that anybody who's trying to be anti-racist by saying if you're white you're bad, they may be missing the sort of finer points on what anti-racism is supposed to be.
Does anyone need a refresher course on the Be Less White training that Coke was doing? Because it literally said to be white is to be oppressive, to be arrogant, to not listen, to not be humble, to be aligned with white solidarity. That's what it said. These people don't know what they're talking about. They don't know how this is being used. They're like in this little bubble where they never actually look at the real world consequences of what they're putting out there.
Doing, which is deconstructing systemic and institutional barriers. I want to be respectful of time. And I'm looking through the chat just to see if I missed anything. If folks wouldn't mind, I'm going to go back to the blank slide page.
Yes, let's go back to the blank slide. Incredibly helpful, Jacob.
Throw in a couple phrases, words or phrases that you think of as sort of encapsulating critical race theory. Based on what we've talked about here, or based on what you've read or discussed in your own work or teaching. I'm really interested to see what people come up with. Whether or not I make a word cloud with the 5 minutes that I have left, I am interested to see what people are thinking about.
No, Casper gets no word cloud. No, not Casper. Oh my God, Casper, I was looking at your chat. I'm sorry. Jacob gets no word cloud. I'm sorry. Casper is good. Jacob is bad. August, thank you for the super chat. It's the champagne Casper. I'm sorry. Casper's the best. He's one of my favorites. He's very, very funny.
Yeah, I see Brian's comment in the box, in the chat, about what's going on in schools and how we can talk to folks. I was just talking to someone in one of our school districts.
Which one?
And asked if there had been any statement,
which one?
Denouncing the violence against Asian Americans.
Oh my God, I know which one. I know. Exeter, because I have the email that they sent out denouncing violence against Asians and blaming it on white supremacy, when violence against Asians is not a white supremacy problem. It is mostly committed by African Americans.
Told at the district level that no, because make such a statement was too political and divisive.
This blank slide is a dog whistle for white supremacy. It's all white. It's a symbol of white supremacy.
So
Jacob, why are you white supremacist, Jacob? Jacob, why are you white supremacist? Why do we have a whole screen of white? I cannot believe how racist you are. Why isn't your slide black, Jacob? I don't feel included at all in this slide. Carlin, you might run into problems if you tries to use a honey badger that is a symbol for the MRA YouTube group. I know who honey badgers are, dude. I know who the honey badgers are. That's why we're using a fox. Fox, final answer. We'll have a special forces team called the Wolverines.
Used for, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just, I don't know. I go back to that my feeling of exasperation, that on this front, this bill is saying, here are a bunch of things that you can't say. And on the other front, there's another bill that says, I feel persecuted on UNH's campus because of my particular political leaning. You can't have it both ways.
You actually can have it both ways, Jacob. You can, because one does not have to do with the other. One has nothing to do with the other. One has nothing to do with whether or not you are persecuting Republicans and Trump supporters on your campus.
And I think that we can have difficult conversations about divisive concepts without making whole swaths of the population feel guilty, or without accusing them of something. And I think that it's troubling to think that there are.
Then stop saying that all white people are racist. Just stop. If you're claiming you're not doing that anyway, and you won't acknowledge that the most well-known texts in your subject area are literally doing that, just say, like, Jacob, do you think that all white people are racist? Do you think white people are born racist? Do you agree with Robin DiAngelo when she said that she was racist from the time she was in the womb?
Are teachers, but of course there are teachers and faculty who see this bill as accurately describing critical race theory. I mean, my hope, to be frank, I invited the entire committee, as well as the sponsors of the bill, to this.
Yes, that's how we found out about it, because you invited the entire committee to this little presentation, and now here we are. I'm not on the committee, obviously, but that's how I heard about it.
Events, and my goal is not to shout down anybody. My goal is to
shout down people. That is entirely my goal.
Try and give, again, a counter story to the narrative that's being proposed by the bill itself. And so, Brian, to your point, I hope we can talk about how we can embrace that counter storytelling process out in the schools, in the legislative process, in our classrooms, whatever. There are a lot of different ways to do that, I guess.
Jacob, could I offer one more thing? I'm sorry to be speaking up so much here. So anybody, please raise your hand and
Andrew, stop colonizing the space.
Quiet me down. But
Go for it.
I think we need to be really careful about succumbing to the accusation of "you made me feel some way," right? So, for example, if I present some
critical race theory literally teaches that intention does not matter, that all that matters is outcomes. So, what?
Findings and patterns, social science research on racial discrimination. Somebody leaves my class and said, "You made me feel bad." I didn't make it. I didn't make anybody feel any kind.
Oh, is Andrew arguing that intention matters? Andrew is going to get kicked out of the critical race theory club right quick. Also because he's a white man. Let's not forget that.
Kind of way, right? You feel the way that you do in response to that data in a way that I can't control.
You notice that Andrew is literally watching this presentation from his attic. That to me says something about Andrew. I'm not quite sure what, but it definitely says something.
At all, right? And so if the accusation is that people are being made to feel a certain way, again, that's a kind of framing that I think we really need to push against, right? So I mean, somebody else could.
I think that Andrew right now is showing his inherent white male privilege, and I don't really appreciate him colonizing the space.
Listen to the data that I gave and walk out and be pissed off, or they could.
Why is there a cot in the background? Does Andrew live on a cot in this attic? I have so many questions.
Could be, all kinds of things, right? So that's way different than literally saying you should feel a certain way. But the emotional effects of a particular pattern of data are not the responsibility of anti-racist educators, right? Now, of course, you want to respond. Of course, you want to support people in and not being despondent or anything like that. But I hear that as a particular kind of accusation too. And I think it's a dead end. It's a way to kind of, it's not something we should.
I just want to point out something. It's a little hard to see, but it's right in the background. I don't know. Can you guys see my mouse? I don't know if you guys can see my mouse. No, you can't. Okay. So it's in the background. There is a book right behind Andrew that has the text on it. And I don't know if people can see it, but that text says "The Case Against Free Speech." I'm not making this up. Andrew, right behind him in this shot, that book, that white book with the black and red text, that text says "The Case Against Free Speech." You can't make this shit up.
We should agree to we shouldn't agree with the terms of that kind of accusation.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't go out of my way to
No,
again,
guys,
you can't
I
make
am
any-
100% right about this. I can see it very, very clearly on my screen. Go to the webinar. Like, you guys all have the link. I can see this very clearly on my screen. I'll take a screenshot of it later.
Anybody feel anything. I don't go out of my way to say things that I hope will lead to people walking out or lead to people feeling a certain way because they don't like, again, the data or the information or the theory.
Thank you, Rachel. Cheers to
but
you.
I'm also not, I also think it's important that we ask ourselves why we feel that way when someone says, the capitalist system of the United States is based on slavery. Like, why does that make anybody feel bad or guilty? That's the question that I want to dig into, not.
Jacob definitely thinks this country was founded in 1619.
Why did you say that, Jacob? I think in my testimony against the bill, I think I toward the end I said that the bill attempts to turn the investigation of a wrongdoing or an evil into the evil itself. The inquiry is not the bad thing. That's the point,
So thank you, Jacob. I want to be mindful of people's time, and I'm
Yes.
Invitation proposal meeting, but people feel free to stay on, and I can leave. But thanks so much, Jacob, for doing this for us. And folks, please let us know. We want to keep a series like this going, just talking about these different kinds of concepts. So if people have ideas or requests, let us know. So I'm signing off, but other people do not have to sign off. Thanks, Jacob.
Thank you, Judy. I'm going to stop recording now, just for the sake of saying that. We still have a few folks hanging out. I'm trying to remember what my next thing is. I do have, I am conducting a study and I have an interview with a participant in like 10 minutes. But if anybody has any other questions or recommendations, feel free. I have a couple minutes that I can hang out and answer.
Jacob, it's Jason here. You and I met a few years ago, so it's
Yeah.
good to see you again.
Soy.
I just posted a comment there in the chat bar.
Yeah. So earlier in the chat, I put the file for the PowerPoint in there, and the last two slides include some suggested readings. I'm trying to remember. The McCoy and Roderick's, it's on the very last page. It's the Critical Race Theory in Higher Education, 20 Years of Theoretical and Research Innovations. It's an ASH Higher Education report from 2015. And that does a really good job, I think, of giving some of the intellectual underpinnings and lineage that you're asking about. So I would suggest that, but that's just one possibility. You could also look at the Laurie Patton piece has a really great works cited. The Ladson Billings has a really great work cited to give a sense of where to go. I usually, there's a lot of Derek Bell in there because I think of him a lot when I think about critical race theory, just because I like his approach. He writes about law, but he also writes
2 more minutes. 2 more minutes,
sort of,
guys. We can do this.
Fiction that
It's going to be okay.
illustrates his larger points.
We're going to finish
But
this.
if you
I'm
ever
going to
have any
sign
other
off.
questions, feel free to shoot me an email. I'm sending you my email address right now in the chat as a direct message. Because I don't know when my institutional address is going to disappear as an adjunct.
Jacob has the same mug that's the Ladder with Crowder mug, except it's a different color. I'm just saying.
All right, I'm going to say one more time or ask one more time if anybody has any questions. I'm
No.
happy to answer.
No one has any
but I
more questions,
should turn
Jacob.
my-
All right. I think that's good enough for that. I think we have all suffered enough. Well, we have about 275 people that hung in there. Guys, if you enjoyed this stream, please make sure to give it a thumbs up on your way out the door. Now, I do just want to remind you that I will be launching a special coercive project. It's going to be a guerrilla project. We're going to do lots of fun things together as a community, as an unwoke army, if you will. Now, if you want to get on my mailing list, all you need to do is go to drcarlin.com, and it's right on the homepage. You just scroll right down, you put in your email address, you're going to get on my mailing list, and you will be one of the first people to be notified when this project is up. Also, as an even better option, because I'm really trying to end any reliance I have on YouTube, because God knows that it's not going to be here forever. Please join my Locals community. Locals is free to join. You don't have to pay unless you want access to additional perks, but it is free to join. At least you get into the community. It's kb.locals.com. The information is in the description below, and you get all my videos ad-free. You don't have to suffer through any of the ads. They're going to be launching live streaming soon, so I'm going to be able to do live streams into Locals, which would be awesome. So that would be really great. So thank you guys for spending some time with me today. That was